Welcome to the Inland Valley Storytellers Monthly Story Swap. My name is John St. Clair, and I'm your Zoom host and also the leader of this group. So we're still trying to figure out where the speaker's going to stand. That's awfully far, isn't it?
That's why they have a chair.
Yeah, see, the chair can make it closer.
Yeah, but it's just such a funny game.
I just set it up here.
That's a brilliant idea. And the speaker can be here.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to be first? Jane is.
I'm telling a story that I told a long time ago, and I need to practice it a long time ago. Bear with me. I'm going to take you to the grocery store in the cereal aisle where Joy Stevens is looking at the cereal. She's looking for her cereal that she always buys, and she can't find it. She's worked late, and she's tired, she has no food at home, she's got her milk. Where is my cereal? She can't find it. Did they change the box? Did they move it to another place? She's so frustrated, she actually starts to cry. And she decides she's just going to give up. She's going to leave the store. And she starts to head out of the store. On the way out of the store, she remembers she has a prescription. So she goes to the back where the prescription is. She's waiting for her prescription. And she's staring at the bulletin board because she doesn't want people to see that her tears are running out. And there's all these posters, for yard sale, dog sitting, dog walking, and garage sale, and guitar lessons. And over in the corner, there's this little card that's crooked. So she goes to straighten it and it falls into her hand. Joyce Stevens? Oh, that's me. So she gets a prescription and goes home. She looks at the card as it falls out of the bag when she gets home, and it says, change your life, change your habits, change your life, Margaret, 6248652. One. And so 8, it's a 7 to 8. She looks at the clock, and it's 7:15. So she thinks, well, why not? So she calls. Beep, 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 beep. Hello. Hi. I'm calling for Margaret. I have this card. Yeah. What do you want? She goes, the card says, change your habit, change your life. She goes, yeah, well, what do you need? What do you want? My life is pretty good, I have a good job. Well, why are you calling me? She goes, I don't know. Well, okay. You want to change your, tell me which, sorry, let me back up. Hello? Hi, I'm doing it wrong. Should have practiced it. Okay. So she calls. Hello? Hi, this is Margaret. Hi, my name is Joyce Stevens. I have your card. It says, change. Yeah, I know. What do you need? What's wrong? She goes, well, I don't know. She goes, well, tell me about your life. She goes, I don't know. My life is pretty good. Well, then why are you calling me? Well, last month was my birthday, and I turned the age of my mother when she died. She goes, oh, okay. Well, all you have to do is change 3 things, and then your life will be better. She goes, well, what 3 things? Well, you're going to tell me. Oh, okay. All right. Tell me this. What is one thing that you hate that you use every day? My hair dryer. Okay. Tell me one thing you hate about yourself. My weight. Okay. Something that you always wanted to do your whole life. Travel, or maybe don't think about it. Just answer. Dance. Yeah, I always wanted to dance when I was a little girl. Since I was a little girl. Okay. All right. Pick one. Change it. Call me back. Quick. Margaret. Hello. Well, that was odd. So she goes. She gets up the next morning. She takes a shower. And, oh, she goes to sleep that night and she has this dream that she's back in the cereal aisle. But the cereal aisle goes on all the way to the horizon. She looks up and the cereal's all the way to the sky. And she wakes up having had this horrible dream. And she's tired and she's exhausted. She gets up, she takes a shower, and she takes out her hair dryer and starts to blow her hair. And it's old, it's the hand down. And she starts to blow dry her hair. She has to jam that cord because it's kind of short. So mad, she throws it down the hallway. Margaret, Margaret, I'm telling you, it was wonderful. I threw it down and broke into a million pieces. And then I got a new one. And I have a diffuser on it. My hair looks great. Oh, that's wonderful. Great. Does my voice sound echoey? Echoey? What do you mean? I threw away all my living room furniture, everything. It was all junk. And I have so much space. It's wonderful. You're doing good. You're doing good. Okay. What was the next thing? Your weight. My weight? Yes, your weight. Change it. Call me back. Margaret? Margaret? Change it. Just change it. Call me back. Change it. Call me back. She goes to sleep. She wakes up this morning. She's still fuming because this lady hung up on her again. And she's at the coffee stand. And she's ordering. I'll take a macchiato. I don't know. A macchiato with the muffin. And just change it. You know, call me back. Change it. Call me back. She's talking to herself. And he goes, excuse me, do you want to change? You want some change? She goes, oh, no, I don't want any change. Wait a minute. Just give me a plain coffee with flat milk and make it skid milk, and I'll take this banana. So she goes to work, and every time she eats, she doesn't do anything else. She just eats. She realizes it only takes one time to eat a banana. You know, on the internet or on the phone or doing other things. And anytime she has to print, she goes up the stairs, and she has to go to the accounting office. She takes the stairs, and at lunchtime she starts going around the block. And at first she has to consciously work on it, but after a while, it's, you know, it becomes nature. Margaret, you should see, I think I've lost the pant size. My pants are so loose. It's wonderful. That's great. That's great. What was the third thing? What's the third thing? Just, dance. I know. Change it. Call you back, right? You got it. Good. So she works really hard that week, so she doesn't get there until the following end of the week, Friday. And Joy goes to the community center. She sees all these dance classes. There's salsa, there's swing dance, there's country, and there's belly dancing. Oh, belly dancing. Okay, they put in for that. So she goes over to where the room is and she looks in. There's all these women and one man, three men, and they're all dressed with scarves and chinglies on them and headdresses and jewelry. And the teacher starts shimmying. And everything starts making a noise, and all the class starts shimmying, and she thinks it's great. So she goes, she gets the practice CD, and she goes home, and she starts to practice. So she puts on, she bought a scarf too. She puts it on, and she goes out in the living room, and she starts to put the music on, and the beat gets a little faster, and I can't do it. She started to shimmy, and then she's like enjoying it so much, and the beat picks up. And she starts flowing around and swinging and twirling. And first she's laughing, and then she starts to cry, and the tears are just flying off. She's having such a wonderful time. So then the next day, when she gets tired, she decides, she looks at the clock, and it's 10 minutes to 8. She decides, I can still call Margaret. Hello? Hello? Hi, is Margaret there? It's a different voice. No, I'm sorry to say, Margaret has passed. She goes, oh my God, really? Yes, she died last Sunday. You know, her arthritis was so bad. And she was, it was time to go. Oh, I'm so sorry. Is her family going to have a get together or anything? Margaret never spoke of family. She said she didn't want a service. She said that my people will remember me. That's what Margaret always said. She goes, I'm sorry. What was your name? I'm Mariana. I've worked on the second floor where Margaret lived for the last 20 years. Been taking care of her for a very long time. We're all going to miss her very much. Oh, Well, I have to go now. Mariana, and you are? My name's Joy Stevens. The dancer.
A wonderful story.
I'm very
Right.
So Anne Rutherford was at one of the storytellings that I went to, and I love that story, and I bought the CD. And when I told it before, I listened to the CD over and over again, so I didn't have to try to write it up like I used to do. And then I don't know where the CD is, and I kept looking for it because I've been wanting to tell it. It's online. You just go to YouTube, put Anne Rutherford, Anne with an E, and put The Habit of Joy, and you get the whole album
Wow.
free.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That was a great story. Thank you.
I need to practice it.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's why we're here. Practice stories. I think I want to tell. Yay! So I'm going to tell an original story written by Dan Ked, and I tell it with his permission. It's called One Sheep. Long, long ago, there was a boy that lived in a village, and his job was to take the sheep up into the hills to graze. He took his dog with him, and the dog would watch the sheep while the boy played his little string instrument and sang songs. You see, the boy loved listening to the old people in the village sing their songs in the village square. And so when he took the sheep up into the hills to graze, he would practice playing and singing those village songs. Well, one day, the boy took the sheep far up into the mountains, further than he had ever been. And he came to this valley that had lush green grass. And he thought, this is perfect. So he helped the dog get the sheep, herded into that little valley, and the sheep started grazing contented. So he knew the dog would watch the sheep, and he started looking around. He thought, I want to explore this new place. And he noticed off on one side, it was the east side of the valley, there were these tall cliffs. And he thought, I'm going to go over there and see what's there. And as he got nearer to the cliffs, he saw at the base of the cliffs was a very big cave. And he thought to himself, oh, this is a good thing to know. If a storm comes up, I could maybe get the sheep in there to shelter. I'm going to go explore that cave and see how big it is. Well, when he got there, it was enormous. I mean, it was 30 feet high at least at the entrance. And so he started walking into the cave to see how far it went back. But he never found out because it got too dark. It just kept going and going and going. Well, he was satisfied it was large enough to have the sheep shelter there. So he came back out, and at the front of the cave, there was a large rock, just the right size for sitting. So he sat down on the rock with his back to the cave, looking out into the valley. He could see the sheep, and they were still grazing contentedly. And so he got out his little string instrument and started playing and singing songs from the village. Well, after he did that for a while, he was getting hungry, so he put down his string instrument, took out his lunch bag and got some food out and was just about ready to eat when a voice came out of the cave. Play another one! Well, this startled the boy. It was a very, very loud voice, and he was not expecting it. And he turned around and looked, but all he saw was darkness in the cave. He didn't see anybody, and he was kind of spooked, so he put his lunch back in the bag and picked up his string instrument and was about ready to leave when the voice spoke again. Please, please play another song. Well, this time the voice did not sound so threatening. So the boy played and sang another song. And when he finished, the voice told the story. And it was a wonderful story. And when the story was over, the boy played another song. And then the voice told another story. And so it went for the rest of the day, back and forth, song, story, song, story. And at the end of the day, when it was time to go, the boy said, will you come back and visit me again? And the boy said, yes, yes, I will. This was fun. And so he did. Every day he would take the sheep to that valley, and there was plenty of grass. The sheep were still contentedly grazing, and he would spend the day playing songs and listening to stories. And the stories were wonderful. There were stories of knights in shining armor, stories of battle and valor, stories of love, sad stories, happy stories, stories of promises kept and promises broken. Well, one day, the boy stayed longer than usual, and the sun was getting lower and lower in the sky in the west. And since this cave was on the east side of the valley, the sun's rays started to come into the cave, and eventually the boy could see who was telling the story. At first, the sun glistened off the razor-sharp claws, and then it illuminated the tree trunk-sized legs, and then the long green body covered with scales with leathery wings folded up on the side, and then a long serpent-like neck, and then the head with two horns sticking out of the top and smoke coming out of the nose. The boy was looking at a dragon. And the dragon was telling a story about himself, about his life. And it was a very long story. And he got to a part which was sad, because he was telling about how he was the only one of his kind left that he knew of. And he was lonely living in that cave by himself. And tears started streaming down the dragon's face. And the dragon said that he was afraid that he was going to die alone in that cave. And so the boy went in, and just as the dragon finished the story, the boy put his hand on the dragon to comfort him. And the dragon, whose eyes had been closed, opened his eyes and said, aren't you afraid of me? No, said the boy. Don't you know that I could tear you to pieces with my razor-sharp talons? The boy giggled. Don't you know I could burn you to a crisp with my fiery breath? The boy laughed. Why aren't you afraid of me? I can't be afraid of you, said the boy. I know your story. And the dragon smiled a toothy smile. And then he said, will you still come back to visit me even though you know I'm a dragon? Of course. And he did. Well, one day, the boy stopped for a minute and he said, you know, you don't have to live in this cave by yourself. Why don't you come live with me in the village? Oh, no, said the dragon. Can't do that. Your people and mine have been fighting each other for thousands and thousands of years. If I showed up at your village, the men would go get their spears and their bows and arrows and their swords and attack me. Well, said the boy, I'm going to figure out a way to make it. Not too long after, the boy was in the village square listening to the singers sing their songs. And they stopped for a minute, and he overheard a conversation. And one of the singers said, isn't it a shame that no one ever comes to our village to listen to our songs? Yes, said the other singer. It's really sad. Everybody goes to that village down by the river. They never come here anymore. And the boy got an idea. So he ran to the mayor's house and he knocked on the door. The mayor opened the door and said, what do you want? And the boy said, is it true nobody ever comes to visit our village anymore? Yes, said the mayor. It's so sad. Everybody just goes to that village down by the river. They never come up here to visit us. Well, said the boy, I know how we can get people to come here. You do, said the mayor. Yes, said the boy. I know a storyteller who's the greatest storyteller in the world. He will bring people back here. That sounds like a wonderful idea, said the mayor. Bring your storyteller here to me and I'll listen to his stories. No, it won't work, said the boy. The storyteller, he's a little bit shy. A shy storyteller? the boy said, you would have to come to his place to listen to the stories. I mean, once he gets used to you, he'll be fine. Well, I don't know about that. And then the boy said, and just before we get to his place, I'm going to have to blindfold you. And you're going to have to wear the blindfolds while he tells the stories, and then you can take them off and talk. The mayor looked at the boy and said, wait a second. This is a shy storyteller who is afraid of being watched while he's telling a story. This doesn't sound like a storyteller to me. Oh, I guarantee you, said the boy, he's the greatest storyteller in the history of the world. I've heard many of his stories. All right, said the mayor. I'll get some of the council members to go with me, and you take me to this storyteller's place tomorrow. And the boy said, yes. And so he led them to that valley, and when they got to the valley, before walking to the cave, he put blindfolds on all of them. And they held hands, and they went single file towards the cave, and he had them sit in a semicircle, leaving a big empty spot for half the circle that the dragon would take up. And on the right-hand side of the dragon sat the boy, on the left-hand side sat the mayor, and the rest of the circle was filled with the council members. And so the boy motioned for the dragon to come out, and he started telling stories. He told stories of valor that boiled their blood. He told stories of love that melted their hearts. He told happy stories that made him happy. He told sad stories that made him cry. He told funny stories that made them laugh. And finally, the dragon got to the sad story of his life. And as he told the story, he closed his eyes and tears started dripping down. And one of the tears landed on the mayor's hand. And so the mayor took his blindfold off, thought maybe it was raining, looked up, and there was the dragon. He was quite surprised. But by this time, he was quite convinced that the dragon was a great storyteller. So he went around and took off the blindfolds of the council members, motioning for them to be quiet. And when they all were unblindfolded, they moved in towards the dragon. And just as the dragon got to the end of his sad story about he was so lonely living in that cave and he was afraid of dying alone in the cave, all of the council members touched the dragon as he finished the story. The dragon opened up his eyes, and the mayor said, would you come to our village to be our official storyteller? Yes, yes, said the dragon, I would love to do that. And then the mayor said, I do have a favor to ask of you. Anything, said the dragon, what do you want? The mayor said, will you give us a ride back to the village? And the dragon smiled a toothy smile and said, yes, of course. And he made himself as low as he could. And they all climbed up onto his back, hanging onto the large scales that were kind of like a spine going down the middle. And the dragon opened up his wings and took off into the sky and then came down from the hills over the farms that were in the outskirts of the village. The farmers stopped what they were doing. They saw the mayor and the council members on the back of the dragon, and they all stopped and started running towards the village. The dragon landed in the village square, and soon people were filling it up. And the mayor introduced the dragon as their new official storyteller, and he started telling stories. And they were wonderful stories, and the people loved him. Well, soon word spread throughout the countryside about this fantastic dragon storyteller. And after about a month or so, they were coming from far away to listen to the stories being told by the dragon. And after many years, the time finally came for the end of the dragon's life. And so when he died, he did not die alone. He died surrounded by people from the village, with his head resting next to a man who, as a boy, had sang songs to him. And so all of the hate and the bitterness have been washed away with the tears of the dragon and the power of story. So that's one of the stories I'm going to tell in a second. And thank you for listening to it. I needed to practice it. I'm going to tell 4 stories. It's going to take up an hour. I already did the whole program at my brother's senior apartment building in Denver.
Whoa, how'd it go?
It went well. I went 2 minutes over, but I was also explaining to them a little bit about storytelling and about the stories. So I will streamline it to make sure I don't go over the hour.
I don't think they'll object if you go 2 minutes. over.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. And it will actually have a theme of sorts. They'll all be Dan Kedden stories.
Oh,
Great, it'll be like a tribute to them.
Yeah. So 2 of them come out of his book Elder Tales, and then one was the Russian folktale that I tell that I heard at the Ojai Festival that's not published anywhere, that he heard from his grandmother. And I contacted him about that for permission to tell it, and he was delighted that I would keep this story alive. And then the other one was the original story he wrote, which I just told tonight. So who wants to be next?
Dragons don't have noses, they have nostrils.
Okay. All right. I'll use the word nostrils.
I can do something.
Okay, Dave, you're next.
I'll even work on one of the ones for the county fair.
Yeah, Nick's actually going to be telling a story there, right?
That's just a few. But yeah, I guess, so I'll be there on the 11th. And you just want things in some way connected to growth or animals or plants or flowers. Yes, right.
The area, if you have a historical one of the.
Well, now this is a farm story
Okay,
that you may not even have heard.
okay.
Because you see, Brother Rabbit enjoyed eating fruits and vegetables, but growing those was a lot of work. So he was always looking for a way to eat the things that somebody else grew. And well, Brother Fox, he had the finest farm for miles around. And he lived there with his wife and daughter. And his daughter, she was still in school, you know. Every day she would get up bright and early and she would carry her school books off to school. And as Brother Rabbit was looking at this, he thought to himself, there's got to be a way for me to get into that big old garden, the one with the rabbit-proof fence all around it. After all, that's to keep out rabbits who aren't too bright. And so I've got to figure a way to get in there. And soon he thought. And the next morning, as young Miss Fox came down the pathway from the house into the gate to open the gate so she could go out and close the gate again, Brother Rabbit, he hopped up and said, "Good morning. I'm your new scarecrow." Well, young Miss Fox didn't know anything about a new scarecrow, but she said, "Oh, yep, your daddy hired me to be the new scarecrow because those birds are getting too smart and too difficult. Well, I need to go in there and scare them off from your fruits and vegetables." Well, all right. And so she held the gate open for him to go in. And he went right over to where that vegetable garden was, you know, with the carrots and the beautiful heads of lettuce. Oh, those were the best looking heads of lettuce you ever saw. And after young Miss Fox went off down the road, and he noticed nobody coming down from the house for a while, well, he sat himself down. And don't you know the crunching from that lettuce did scare off all the birds that morning? But when she came back from school, She let him out. She went up to the house. He went home. No problem. So he thought, that worked. I think I'll do it again. And the next day, he went back bright and early because he wanted to be on time. And she let him in. She went off to school. When she came back from school, she let him out. And everything was fine. Until after a while, her daddy said, you know, it's the funniest thing. It used to be the birds were getting into the garden, and it's changed what's getting eaten. And his daughter said, oh, maybe that's the new scarecrow changing the way the birds act. The new scarecrow? Yeah, the new scarecrow you hired. I've been letting him into the garden every morning, and he's been going in and scaring away the birds. I think I'm going to have a word with that new scarecrow after you go to school tomorrow. So the next morning, the rabbit was there at the gate. Young Miss Fox let him into the garden. She closed the gate, went off to school. He went off, and sure enough, the munching of his on the lettuce with an occasional carrot because you know it's good for you. That was still scaring off the birds, or at least scaring the other parts of the garden. But he was so fascinated by this one particular large head of lettuce that he didn't notice a very quiet figure approaching him. It was Brother Fox. And the first notice that Brother Rabbit had that he was in trouble was when Brother Fox grabbed him by the foot and lifted him up in the air. And he was only able to say, hi there, Brother Fox. You have been fattening yourself up on my vegetables. I've been doing the work, planting these vegetables, and you have been doing the work of eating my vegetables. Seems to me you ought to pay me back. I think you ought to pay me back by being a rabbit stew. Well, now, this was not any of the possibilities that Brother Rabbit had considered, but Brother Fox tied him up by the feet to a tree there near the edge of his garden. And he was hanging down from a rope and swinging back and forth from the rope out of that tree. He couldn't reach up to untie himself. He couldn't reach to the ground to get out of that. And he was in big trouble. Well, don't you know that when somebody's swinging back and forth from a tree by their feet, it does catch the interest of passersby. And in this case, Brother Bear was a passerby on the roadway, and he looked over. What you doing, Brother Rabbit? And Brother Rabbit, maybe it was the blood rushing to his ears from being hanging upside down from a tree, but he thought to himself real quick and said, don't you understand? Why, I'm exercising, stretching my spine, making myself feel better. You look like you're hanging upside down. Well, sure. See, that makes my head and my feet pull separate so that my back stretches out. Oh, this feels so good. Could I try that? And Brother Rabbit said, well, yeah, but you'd have to come over into the yard here and untie me from the tree, and we'd have to tie your feet up and let you swing. Okay. Well, now, Brother Bear was bigger than he was smart. So he did the simplest thing to get there, which was to kind of knock over part of the fence and walk over to where the tree was. And he helped Brother Rabbit get his feet untied. And then they made kind of loops for Brother Bear's feet. And Brother Bear put his paws down on the ground and lifted his feet up in the air. And Brother Rabbit tied those feet into these little loops of rope. And let the branch pull lightly up, lifting Brother Bear just off the ground. And he started swinging back and forth. Bump. Because he didn't really lift very far off the ground, and bump. His nose was kind of in the way, and bump. Was this supposed to make your nose hurt? Oh no, that's just because your nose is so much bigger than mine. Sorry, we'll have to adjust the rope later. And that's when things take a turn for the worse. Because you see, I do not know who was more surprised as the next things happened. Because you see, Brother Bear was hanging upside down in a tree on the far side from the house of Brother Fox. And Brother Fox wasn't really thinking about the possibilities of there being anybody in that tree other than Brother Rabbit as he approached it with the axe that he was planning to use to make Brother Rabbit more suitable for stew. And there he was, bump. And there Brother Fox was with the axe over his shoulder, coming around the tree. And where he expected to find a rabbit hanging from that tree, he found a full-sized bear. And where Brother Bear was getting his exercise in, sadly making his nose hurt, there was Brother Fox holding an axe above him. Now, as to which one made the loudest sound first, there is some debate. Because you see, Brother Bear very reasonably, run! And Brother Fox very reasonably went. Brother Bear ripped his feet and the rope and the branch from that tree, and he scrambled back through the fence, making a real mess. Brother Fox ran all the way back up to his house and didn't stop till he got on the other side of that door and slammed it and locked it and bolted it. Brother Rabbit, there on the ground, looked and looked and picked up another head of lettuce and headed on home. But you know, after that, Brother Rabbit, he decided it just might be safer to grow his own garden. But that's another story.
Thank you, Nick. That was wonderful. Ron, do you have a story?
Nah.
Okay. Did I do that?
Yeah,
You sit for this one?
thinking about stories rarely told. Looking at my story list today. And there's a story somewhat based on a legend out of Scotland. That I took a class from Claire Murphy, who told a version of it, who I expanded on it, and I pulled it back. And I have no idea how long it will run tonight. So somebody keep track of this. I have to do it. There goes. In days so long in the past that only the most distant echoes of these days reached human ears, the fair folk lived in a beautiful land, and they were called fair folk simply because as long as their hearts remained pure and they sang and danced and lived their happy, peaceful lives amongst themselves, their faces radiated that out, and they were fair to look upon. but they were also immortal. And as years went by, false pride made its way into some of their hearts. And from false pride grew envy. And from envy grew jealousy. And from jealousy grew scheming. And as this happened among some of the people, their beautiful, fair faces began to change. Of course, the royalty, the people in charge, were appalled, but they didn't know what to do about it. These were people that were powerful like themselves. They didn't want to go to actual war with them, but eventually war broke out and immortal souls were lost and terror reigned on the land, and the fair folk retreated into the mountainsides rather than face the evil ones that were loose in the world. In this grim state of existence, their king, David, the noble, was looking for some solution, something to do, and he didn't know what. And then one of his advisors said, one day soon, the noonday sun will go dark. And with that hint, he went to the great jewel of their people and waited for that moment. Nay, and by the power of the darkened sun and the mighty jewel and his own magic, he created the fair folks. And what this would do was this. If you could spread the fair folks' will on one who was still fair to look upon, they could at will turn invisible. This was a great power. The king said, with this power, we will be able to root out the evil ones, force them from our presence, and move back into the valleys and be peaceful people again. And so it was done. But with great power also comes great loss. None had known it at the time they anointed the oil upon themselves, but it was only possible for them to conceive new. Therefore, whenever there was any use. And so as time went by, the fair folk dwindled and became fewer and fewer and fewer. While mortal folk grew and spread. There was one noble whose wife had conceived, some time before, and was growing toward her time, and yet she was having great difficulty. And he looked at the fair folk healers who were very good at sword wounds, that delivered one baby every 20 years, and thought, this is not how I can approach this. I must do something else. I need to help my beloved Elspeth. And so he went out to the stable, to the king's flying horse, and said, I need your help. Can you take me to the mortal world, to the best midwife we found nearby? That best midwife lived in a cottage by herself. Her husband and daughter had died some time before, and so most of her life was simply waiting for someone to be in labor. But she had a good living there. She didn't have a whole lot of respect for the menfolk of many of these women, for they seemed to panic when they shouldn't and not be panicked when they should. But it was not unusual for her to sit in her, not by her fire, in her great chair, rocking and dozing off. And sometimes there would be a knock at her door, and some panicked man would say, come help my wife. And she would go and do what she would do. This particular night was rather stormy and dark, and she didn't know of any women nearby who might be pregnant. And so she was actually thinking of going to sleep in her bed when there were hoofbeats coming toward her little cottage. None of the people riding horses. The door was pounded on by a mighty hand saying, Please, my wife, she's in labor. I need your help. She gathered her bag and said, yes, I will help, and stepped out the door, and there in front of her was a horse that might have been 20 hands tall, and a man, a very handsome, bright-faced man, as panicked as any husband she'd ever seen. He scooped her up and threw her on the back of the great horse who turned and ran a few steps and rose into the air. The man in front of her seemed to vanish. She could feel his body, but she could not see him. The great horse went straight toward the sides of the great mountains. They were heading right at a rock. And she thought she would be crushed with the horse and the man, but she went into a huge cavern, beautifully decorated, bright lights, any place you looked. Hey, but there were very few people. There were buckets walking as if they were being carried, but there was no one holding them. Hey, there was an anvil with hammers ringing, but there was no one. She did not know what to make of it. But the man kept hurrying her forward. He got her into the house, and he saw the old woman. She was in great distress. The baby had turned gay and was literally going to kill her if she'd been a mortal person, but she had great strength. She got careful. She moved over. She put her hands in places. She massaged carefully, and she worked things around. And somehow or another, between her skill and the elf woman's great strength, the baby was turned. The birth went forward. The little boy came forward. She told her, that is absolutely the best news possible. A son, after all these centuries, a son to grow up and take my place in the king's court. It is the best news I could possibly have. Thank you, but there's something you must do. This pot of oil, is very important. You must wipe this child head to foot, covering every inch of skin in this wonderful magical oil. And then be sure that you get every single speck of it off of yourself. Well, she didn't understand why, but anointing a baby was not a hard thing to do. And so she went alone, but she was tired and frightened, and without thinking about it, she touched the side of one eye as she was working. And of course, washed up very carefully. All was well. Hey, they went back on the great horse. Hey, and she was flown back to her own place. And it's a good fun thing to do. And so the first day of the fair, she left her home early, and arrived at the fairgrounds, looking around her. And there, amongst the ordinary people on booths, there were many absolutely beautiful people in gorgeous clothes with faces that radiated happiness and joy. And it was clear that they were fair folk who were invisible to the people around them, and stepped quickly aside to the clothes. And she was marveling at this, and then she saw them. Elspeth and her husband. And she went up to him and said, Your Majesty, your lordship, how is the baby? How is the little boy?
And the man turned at her angrily and said, "You can see us?" "Well, yes, but can you see us with both eyes?" "Why, I do." "No, only this one." His hand shot out and plucked the other from her head, and instantly healed over. And he said, "Speak of this to no one." She bought some things. She walked around. She saw the many fair folk and the many mortal folk. And as she was doing so, she was thinking, "An eye is a great price. But I have brought fair folk into the world. Who else say that?" Okay, Claire Murphy had the flying horse in the oil. All right, and I just made it into my own tale.
Yeah, I heard her tell that story. Claire Murphy is one of my favorite storytellers. She's incredible. And she, I'm not a great fan actually of workshops, but I would go to one of her workshops anytime. She's the best workshop leader I know.
And I've gone to workshops by masters all over the United States at different festivals. I would fly to Ireland tomorrow if she was going to give a week-long conference. I don't know how I'd pay for it, but I would do anything.
She's remarkable. Okay, any other stories? And unfortunately, just like, was it last month that happened? We lost our internet connection. So part of your story was not real.
Well, Penny, did you hear any part of it?
Penny's no longer with us.
Mhm.
She probably gave up.
Well, okay. Anyway.
Which we want to listen to, but you know the middle.
And I was watching you. I wasn't noticing when it lost the connection. It probably went fine. But when it came back in is when it said recording in progress.
Yeah.
And then I came over and I had to unmute you because when it restarted, everybody is muted when it restarts. So I had to unmute you.
So what could we do to solve that problem?
I need to talk to the people here and see. Last time it happened, it was raining, and I thought maybe it was the weather, but it's perfect weather today.
Yeah, is it about the same time?
Well, last time it happened several times during the meeting. I think it was 2 months ago. It was a rainy
Mine was
day.
doing that at home, and I had to get new equipment. Because my internet wouldn't come on when I tried to watch Netflix, and I'd go through all the rigmarole, and then it would work, but it would work because it was just it was just dropping.
Was it your computer that needed to be replaced?
No, they just needed to replace my router and it was old equipment.
So I need to talk to the.
Yeah, see if they have
So one of
problems.
us had a hotspot, is that what it's called? Would that solve the problem? It is a hotspot.
But if they're having problems, they may want to upgrade because the company that's leasing them, if they're with, AT&T or whatever, they may want to just upgrade their equipment. The router and
I don't know whether they've been having problems, or whether any other clients like us
Yeah.
use the internet. Probably not very many do.
Well, I was at an event in Garner House and it just stopped recording.
Also,
Yeah. And when they set up the networks or whatever, sharing with a lot of people, and they need to regroup them on occasion. So it's just time for them to tell the company that we're not getting what we're supposed to get. And there's a website you can go to and it actually tells you what you're getting. And it tells you when it's outside. So mine will just drop below 200 or something. It was happening all the time, all of a sudden, and then they just sent me new equipment and stuff.
Okay, well, I'll talk to them. Do we have any other stories?
It's a delightful evening.
I'm gonna stop the recording then.
Ron, what was the name of their working story?